Greetings! Aren't these little stars fun? I'd like to share with you a really simple process for creating these stars that can then be glued onto a holiday card so you can reach out to all your friends and loved ones, sending support and love and encouragement during holiday time 2024. These may look dimensional, but they're actually flat. It's a really simple technique. I will post all the materials I use with a link to an online shopping center at the end of the video. To get started, I bought a pile of these watercolor postcards because I like to send out my greetings on postcards. It saves paper for an envelope, and while it doesn't really matter in terms of the cost of a stamp, it just seems simpler. Then I cut out some stars that will fit onto the postcard. You may decide to use all 3 stars or just 1 star, whatever, but I just want to make sure they would fit on the size of the postcard. I cut them out of watercolor paper, and then I simply took mixed media paper and traced around the stars using my pencil to fill up the entire sheet. Once I have traced around my stars, this is pencil on mixed media paper, I'm now going to fill in some of the details using a gold acrylic marker. And the reason why I like this Posca pen is it's got a beautiful gold color, as you'll see, and it doesn't smell. Sometimes I've used paint pens. This is a beauty, this chrome paint marker, or the Deco paint pen, but they do have a bit of an odor and I'm sensitive to it, so I prefer the Posca acrylic paint pen. And the main challenge with this technique is getting these lines in this manner. So I'm going to start at the point of each star and bring in those 5 lines to the center. And then, like the crook of your arm, this little angle there, I bring those lines in. So I have 5 points and 5, I'll call those angles. And I do that on each one of the stars, and it doesn't matter that my pencil lines are not complete. I'm going to be watercoloring over this and cutting out the stars, so I don't really care much about the pencil lines. They're just acting as guides. So I'm going to fill up an entire page with those lines. Here's an example. And on this side, I've experimented with silver, the silver paint pen, and my experience now is I prefer the gold, but you can play with either. And I like the zhuzh, I like the sparkly, but you could try any kind of acrylic marker on your stars. For the next step, I opened up some tube watercolors and put them in plastic trays. You could certainly work out of your watercolor palette. I just found it faster and more fun, frankly, to work out of the watercolor tray. Also, I determined for myself what my color palette for this was going to look like, and I just like the way these purpley pink stars came out a little better. It just satisfied me more than the yellow pinks and oranges. But I encourage you to just figure out your color palette, what colors you like that go together really nicely and are yummy to you. This is also a favorite. So figure out what colors are yummy to you and limit it to whatever, 2 or 3, so you're not stressing out about your colors. This is a round brush, and I've got my water, and there are endless numbers of ways you can paint this. I'll show you a couple of possibilities. So I activate my paint, and one approach is to paint just the right side of every one of those gold lines. And you'll notice that I'm purposely going outside the pencil line. I want my paint to come outside the pencil line because I'm going to cut the star out, and I like to have that filled up. So if I paint one side one color, then I can paint the other side with something else. That first one was called Sea Glass. This is ultramarine blue. And you'll notice that the gold pen acts as a slight barrier. It's not a complete, what we would say, mask, but it is a slight barrier, keeping so you can see the gold, and it keeps the colors somewhat separated, just a little bit, not a ton. So that's one way to approach it. Another way to paint this is to just have fun, get the whole thing wet, let colors bleed and flow, no rhythm, no rhyme, just let yourself have a good old time. And the only thing I like to be sure is that I do like to have some darker areas, so I might come in. If you've taken a class from me, you've heard me say change colors every inch. So I might come in and just darken a little bit in the center there. And you could see in some places that gold is acting as a resist, in others not so much. So you just have fun with the star. This is great for kids because you really don't have to be exact. That's never in my art vocabulary. Okay, once I have my stars painted, then I love to take a gold watercolor pigment and splatter that on. You know, you just need a little zhuzh, a little more gold for the holidays. So the first thing to keep in mind is when you're working with any of these iridescent pigments, gold or any of these, you do have to let the water sit on here for a few minutes as opposed to activating just the regular watercolor where you're ready to dip and go. And I want a fair amount of water on here. I get it on my brush and I just tap my brush against a pencil or anything, and that's giving me that spattered look. And if I do it while it's still a little damp, then the gold spreads out a bit and just is fun. So I'm going to just spatter this gold on top of my stars, and that gives me a page full of that, which looks totally messy. But wait. Here you can see my totally messy page, and I'm thinking, oh no, but look at that fun gold, the way that shines. The next step is to cut out your star. So I cut the segment out first, and then I'm going to follow my lines that I can just barely see, those pencil lines, to cut the star out. So here's my little star cut out, and you can see I used the silver pen in the inside. It's not showing up quite as much as the gold, so this is what I mean about the Posca gold pen that I like better. But isn't this just the cutest little thing? And you can see that this star looks dimensional because I painted one side dark and the other side light consistently all the way around, and that's how you get those stars to look dimensional. Now you get to decide how you want them on the card and what you might like to say. Do you want all three? Do you want just one? That's up to you. Here you can see I went ahead and just spattered that gold watercolor paint on this card, and you know, if a little is good, often a little more is more fun. So then I also put in some of that green blue, splattered that on top of the card. And now I'm going to take my finished star, and one trick with a glue stick is just make sure that you are working on some waste paper, scrap paper. Take your glue all the way over each one of the points of the star, and then when you set it on your card, put the cap back on your glue and use that to burnish the paper onto the backing, making sure that all the areas of the back are in contact with the card. This is just a good way to do it. If you have a brayer, you can certainly brayer that, but I just as soon use the top of the glue. So that's one possible card. Here's another way I used the stars. I glued 3 of them together on this. And, you know, honestly, my message for my friends and family is that we will basically be hanging together this time in our lives. So I'm going to put some little figures. I make a circle for the head, a triangle, and some little legs. And then what if this hand is reaching out and holding the hand of someone else? And there's a little triangle for the dress with the leg, and this arm that's reaching out, this arm maybe is reaching up and holding on to the star, and this one's reaching out. And my message is that we're going to hang together as we still look for joy. And now I've got these little figures hanging off, and I could fill them with paint just for fun. Here are the finished cards. This first one with the spattered background, look how pretty that gold is. I just added the cord at the top and put in the word joy. And this one a little bit more into it, peace and joy together with the stars and these little figures helping each other hang on. And here is the material list. You can find watercolor postcards just about anywhere. There's a lot of different sites online, but you can also cut out your own postcards out of a variety of materials. Just make sure you have the dimensions that are going to go in the mail. I suggest scrap paper that is cardstock or watercolor, something a bit heavy, so you can cut out your template. And if this is a little heavier, then it's easier to trace around. And then I like mixed media paper for the actual stars. It holds the water well, and it's easy to cut out, and it's easy to glue down. If you work with watercolor paper, and I was working with a 90-pound, which is really thin, it's fine. You can cut it out. It's just they don't seem to glue as easily. They tend to bow up a little bit. So that's why I like the mixed media paper. You need a pencil, that Posca pen, and any watercolors that you think play well together, that'll look nice together. Here's my list that I've been working with, and of course this one is a must. This is made by Finetech. There are other companies, of course, but I like this Arabic Gold by Finetech, and it's just always performed really beautifully. I use a paintbrush, scissors, and glue. I hope you enjoyed this. Please subscribe and like down below. And I will also put a link in down below for an online site where I've put all these items into a shopping cart. And just to make it easy for you, if you just want a central place to purchase all this, you can use that link. You can also get into the shopping cart and delete anything that you don't need to purchase. So that also is in the information down below. Happy holiday to you. May this be a season of good health and togetherness.